Welcome back, team. This is a very special breakdown. The two sides for this weekend, 4 a.m. Ireland take on the All Blacks. The teams are out. Rob Kearney played 95 games for Ireland. We've brought him in to get a different perspective. We're always talking about the All Blacks. Rob, welcome. I've got to ask you first and foremost, though, if we think about this contest, what was special for you about playing against the All Blacks?
Um, the special thing for me was, listen, your team has always been historically the best team in the world, the pinnacle of not just rugby, but you might stretch it as far as saying as the greatest sports team in the history of sport. And I genuinely, I don't say that lightly. You are testing yourself against the very best players and team in the world. The week is filled with so much excitement because you're getting that challenge, but also so much nerves because you know if you're off by a couple of percent that you can absolutely get a cricket score put on you, which happened to me on one occasion, which is probably the most embarrassing game that I've ever been involved in, a 60 points nil.
So then let's take you back then, just quickly. Can you recall at Soldier Field 2016 when you break a 111-year drought against the All Blacks? Can you recall the final moments, given what you've just said, in that game when you know that you've got the job done, that you have beaten the All Blacks for the first time? Is that clear to you about how it felt then?
Yeah, I'll never forget it. We kicked the conversion after a try to go. Oh, I'm not sure. It might have been 8 or 9 points up, and there was a restart. And I came back to the halfway line. I pulled the boys in. I was like, "Right, boys, focus. This restart's so important. We gotta make sure we maintain the ball and get it off the field." And the lads looked at me and they were like, "We're 9 points up. There's no way that they're going to be able to come back this last play." And for that brief moment on the field, knowing that you've actually done it was probably two of the best moments, sorry, two of the best minutes, most enjoyable minutes I've ever had on a rugby field.
Uh, So then, given the enormity of that, do you think the moment that was done, it's changed it for every other Irish player going forward to play against the All Blacks, knowing the fact it can be done?
Made it 100%. It was the most important thing for Irish rugby. I think I played the All Blacks 10 times before Soldier Field, and every time you're doing press conferences the week of the game, you say, listen, we know on our day if we play our very best rugby, if we produce the best performance we have, we're in with a chance of beating them. But you never really truly believe it until you've actually achieved it. And on the other side of the coin, you never get the respect of the All Blacks team until you've actually produced a win over them. And what we did that day made such a difference for the next 50 years of Irish rugby teams who play against the All Blacks, knowing that the monkeys off the back, an Irish team has actually turned the All Blacks over.
The last time these two teams did play, though, it was in a Rugby World Cup game, and the All Blacks were motivated, were on the top of their game. This is significantly different now. This may be the next generation of Irish players coming up this weekend. Let's talk about these two teams. Let's start with the All Blacks. What have you made of their campaign in 2021 so far?
I've been pretty impressed with them. I thought maybe 6 months ago they were going into a little bit of a lull. They weren't entirely sure the type of game that they wanted to play. They hadn't really settled on their strongest first 15. Even looking at the team sheet today, you could argue different in maybe three or four different positions. I think that's sometimes some of the beauty of these All Blacks teams that you never know exactly down to a T what 15 players are going to be picked. We don't have that luxury in Ireland, a much smaller playing pool. You have your best 15 players, and if they're fit, they're always on the pitch at the weekend.
So we're continually having this debate about who's going to start at first five, and it looks as though Beauden Barrett has well and truly taken and grasped that jersey. His combination, though, of Geordie Barrett at the back. Have you been impressed the development, not so much of Bodie's game, because we knew how good he has always been, but Geordie Barrett, do you see him now as a world-class international fullback?
Yeah, I do. I'll start off by saying I'm actually quite surprised that Bodie's starting at number 10. I think the season that Richie Mwanga has had in Super Rugby and the opening games of those rugby championship. He is just a different class altogether. He's a triple threat. His kicking game is incredible. His ability to take that wrap around, turn the corner off some shapes. The amount of times we see him taking that pass off a forward pod, turning the corner and making that line break. He, for me, has been the best rugby player in the world in the last year. Now, I'm not surprised that Bowden's in the team, given his extreme talent. But going on to your next point, I think it just highlights how highly thought of Geordie is by the coaches at the moment, that he's maintaining that number 15 jersey. Whereas, historically, going back to the World Cup, Richie would have played at 10 and they would have moved Bowden to 15 just to try and facilitate him and get your best players onto the park.
So in regards to other selections that are of great interest, Rieko Ioane moves into the centre position, the guy who's been dynamic on the wing, still growing as an international centre. Significant change there. Why do you think they maybe have gone for that Leonard Brown-Ioane combination?
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. I thought Leonard Brown defended really, really well at 13 against Wales. You're noticeably seeing the All Blacks, they've brought another degree of line speed to their defence. It seems as if they've given TJ Perenara some free roll to sort of shoot out of the line, a little bit like Gareth Davis used to do for Wales. They've given him free rein to try and go at the first receiver and get a man in ball. Rieko is devastating. We're not blessed with size in Ireland, and they obviously think that he can take on that centre challenge and give them really good go-forward ball.
So from what you've seen and the challenges the All Blacks have faced, we understand how the All Blacks would like to play every minute of every game. Do you think maybe this side is getting rewarded through form, but also a little bit of, I suppose, getting the balance right from attack and defence? Pretty much maybe some of the things they learnt later on from the Rugby Championship. Do you look at this squad and go, you know what, you've got a clear picture of how they want to play?
Yeah, I look at this squad and I think they definitely started games a little bit more conservatively. I think that they have this idea in their head that they want to get to 12 points on the scoreboard above the opposition. They're kicking goals early on in the game, but as soon as they hit that 12-point marker, it's almost a switch goes on their head when they're like, right, it's time to start actually playing ball now and really going after teams.
I like that assessment. I couldn't agree more. And a lot of that comes from leadership. Sam Winelock has shown that as the captain. He understands how to build that scoreboard pressure. Let's turn our attention now to your side. This Irish team who last week were impressive against Japan. A couple of weeks ago, were you thinking, you know what, I can't wait for the All Black test. Where is this Irish team at on the back of a Six Nations? Do you look at this group that was selected for this game and you go, you know what, after last weekend, they've got a good shot against this All Black team?
You know what? Two weeks ago, before the Japan game, I thought Ireland's upcoming three-test autumn international was going to be a real struggle for them. They haven't had a game since last March, really, as a full squad, because a lot of players went off on Lions. Some senior players were rested during the summer. And I thought they were going to be in for a really difficult autumn. I expected Japan to be an awful lot better than they were. Now, to be fair to them, they've only had 3 games together as a group since the World Cup. But I was very surprised and equally impressed with Ireland's performance against Japan. They seem to be playing a lot more expansive rugby. They're using the full width of the field and playing to the edges an awful lot more, which is something that this Irish team has been criticised a little bit over the last number of years. But listen, whether you get that speed of ball against the All Blacks, whether the line speed that they're going to bring this weekend to allow you to get to those edges is going to be an awful lot more difficult.
We've seen already, though, right, haven't we, Rob, the fact that the teams that have been able to put the All Blacks under pressure are ones that have had great line speed, have been good at the breakdown, but also have used a really effective high kicking game. They were expansive last week against Japan. Can Ireland and Jonathan Sexton and this group, can they vary their game enough? Or do you expect them to maybe play a little bit more within themselves, go to the air, compete for the ball, because they are good at that as well? And that, I think the last time at Aviva Stadium, worked brilliantly, put the All Blacks under all sorts of pressure. Would you like to see an arm wrestle or a shootout?
I'd like to see a shootout. I think you don't play the All Blacks at their own game, because they're very difficult to beat like that. The same way that if you try and physically combat the Springboks, you're going to be up against a big challenge. So every team has their different strengths, and I think for this Irish team, historically down through the years, I don't know if it's because of the Gaelic footballing background, but Irish rugby teams have always been very good in the air. We've got halfbacks who kick the ball really well. So, like I say, you stick to your strengths, and I see the aerial battle this weekend being a very big component of the outcome.
We think about there's a number of Kiwis as well who have gone over and are now representing Ireland and doing a good job in developing into their role. Jamison Gibson Park, obviously Bundy Aki, James Lowe on the wing. You look at the impact maybe they've made. Is it just complemented what maybe you already had in Irish rugby?
Uh, you know what? The beauty about these boys is that they bring something really different that we don't have. Bundy is a big, strong, abrasive centre. He's got the type of frame and physique that we just don't produce athletes like that in this country. James Lowe, again, the same, a massive winger, strong in contact, big fend. Uh, that's another dimension to Irish rugby. But the guy who impresses me most out of the three of them is Jamison Gibson Park. He is a superb rugby player. I've trained with him for 5 years now, and the amount of times that I come off the training field and you say he was head and shoulders the best performer on the training field, would be astonishing to you.
All right. When push comes to shove, we've got to get you to have some sort of prediction of how this might play out. Like you say, a couple of weeks ago, you weren't sure whether Ireland could and were playing well enough and had enough time together to compete with the All Blacks. Can they not just compete this weekend? Can they win?
Uh, Again, 2 weeks ago, I said we're looking at a 20-point defeat. Now, I think we're probably looking at a 10-point defeat. But
You're
in
not
saying
quite convinced. You're not quite convinced, so you haven't quite turned around. But surely they're
in
capable.
saying
We've talked about what you've got.
in saying that, they've picked a really strong team who performed unbelievably well last weekend, so their confidence is going to be high. This is the first time in 2 years that they're going to be playing in front of a full stadium, so they're going to get an enormous amount of energy from that. I think the fact that in 2016 and 2018, Irish teams have finally turned over the All Blacks, so they will know that this is something that has been done before. It's a feat that's been already achieved by Irish teams gone in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if we did turn over the All Blacks, but at the same time, if I had to put my money where my mouth is right now, I'd say that the All Blacks are going to win.
Last time we spoke to you on the breakdown, you were over in Perth playing for the Western Force, getting a taste of Super Rugby. My understanding now it was time. You've worked out it's time to finally hang them up. You've got one more game in front of you, but I asked you just before we went on air, and I want to hear you tell me the story again. This is great because we all know when it's time. We all know when enough is enough. And it's happened to you already. You're playing one more game for the Barbarians, but it happened for you. Can you run me through exactly when it was, what time it was that you said, you know what, it might be time to hang these things up?
Yeah, you know what? People who retire before, they always say they can pinpoint one moment. And I used to think, well, it's impossible to pinpoint one moment. It must be a culmination of events that happen over the course of the season. But we played. I'm not sure who the game was against now. I think it was. I think it was against the Highlanders. It was in the Trans Tasman competition, and we were away from home, and we were getting pumped by 25 points at half time. It was pissing rain outside. We were in these small little changing rooms, and I went to the toilet half time to take a leak, and I looked out the window. The rain was pouring in. We were getting pumped, and I just thought to myself, I was like, "What are you doing with yourselves? This is your moment to get out of rugby. You've had enough. You haven't picked up anything too serious. You've enjoyed your time. You've been blessed with a career of 16 years. Lucky to be a part of so many teams." But at that moment in time, I was like, "You've got to get out of here. This get through the next 40 minutes of rugby and call it a day." I didn't get through the next 40 minutes of rugby. I got a smack to the head 15 minutes later. I was straight in for HIA, failed my HIA. And I'll tell you what, it's no coincidence that I had that thought at half time, and then 15 minutes later, you get knocked out. Because as soon as you show any sort of mental wavering, that's when things start to happen.
Look, you've been a world-class player, and it's been a pleasure to watch you play the game. I'm looking forward to seeing you one last time for the Barbarians. I'm sure you're going to have a crack like you always have had in your whole career. Thanks so much for joining us, chatting about the big test match this weekend, and we look forward to maybe speaking to you soon about maybe what's going on for you, life after rugby. Cheers, Rob.
Absolutely. Always great to catch up. Cheers, well.